in any way. We did not believe in this. We were against it. We wouldn't act militarily.
Pretty ineffective result. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. I recognize the gentlelady from Minnesota, Ms. Omar, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. It's very clear that we're here for one reason and one reason only today. 3 weeks ago, President Trump held a phone call with the Turkish President Recep Erdogan, during which, by his own admission, he gave Turkey the green light to invade Syria and endanger the Kurdish people. This one action set off a cascade of destabilizing events that have endangered U.S. national security, the stability of the Middle East and the world. Turkish troops have invaded northern Syria. More than 100,000 people are displaced, and hundreds of ISIS supporters have escaped. And Turkey and the Turkish-backed militia have been accused of atrocities against the Kurds, including the alleged use of chemical weapons. The Trump administration bragged about a ceasefire, though Turkey has said their operation is likely to continue. These actions are indefensible. I believe that, as in any conflict in the world, our response as a committee charged with overseeing this administration's foreign policy must be guided by our values: respect for human rights, self-determination, and human dignity for all involved. What is missing here in all the conversations about great power competition and about diplomatic norms and about sanctions is that the most important and fundamental function of what's happening. This is a question, in the end, of human rights and democracy. It's a question of whether Kurds have the right to exist as Kurds. We need to center the rights and dignity of human beings. We need to center the rights and dignity of the Kurdish people as Kurdish people. We have allowed this, and we need to talk about accountability. Accountability does not mean canceling and freezing bank accounts. It does not mean crippling the Turkish economy, enacting mass punishment on populations that didn't choose this. It means thinking seriously about justice for these atrocities. It means thinking seriously about how we stop arming and supporting brutal regimes in the name of our national interest. It means looking with clear eyes at foreign policy that threatens entire groups of people as expandable tools to be used and then discarded if we believe it serves our narrowly defined interest. It means not using the lives and suffering of human beings halfway around the world, suffering that we have permitted, that we have encouraged, as a card we play in our domestic political arguments. So, Ambassador, if it turns out that the Turkey or Turkish-backed forces have used chemical weapons on civilians, what responsibilities does that trigger for the United States?
Again, we have taken a position with the Assad regime on using chemical weapons. We are opposed to it. We made an announcement, Secretary Pompeo, at the UN General Assembly now about a month ago on the latest use of it, chlorine by the Assad forces near Idlib. We're looking into the one accusation that was made, the use of white phosphorus, which under some circumstances is a legitimate military ordinance. Under other circumstances, it is not. You have to look at the circumstances, and that's what we're doing now.
Yeah. When we had the hearing on Syria, I talked about how I felt Turkey and Russia were guiding our policy in Syria and how that was alarming to me. I just wanted to know whether you had an input from the letter the President sent to President Erdogan on October 9th.
I was involved in receiving the letter from General Mazloum, the commander of the SDF, that the President then passed on to President Erdogan, and I was involved in the general. This is the problem of consultations. We consult with the Secretary with the President all of the time on a variety of issues. This president and other presidents then take decisions based upon the sum of all of that, instincts, gut feelings, and everything else. It's how it works. And that produced that letter.
I'd wish that more of you had direct input onto that letter, because I think it's fair to say that the letter is humiliating to the United States. I know you won't be able to agree with that publicly, but it is. Both there is diplomacy, there's art to diplomacy, and quote, don't be a tough guy, don't be a fool. It's not art, it's a national embarrassment, and it's a disgrace. Thank you. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the distinguished gentleman from the Commonwealth of Virginia, Mr. Conley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Mr. Ambassador, Mr. Palmer. Mr. Ambassador, you've agreed that the Turkish incursion